Hey friends, it's Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast where, for those of you who are new, we pick a book of the Bible and then we chip away at it a little bit every weekday. And you're like, I say 10 minutes, but it's maybe like 12 minutes of content is what we're going for. And we try to have fun and think of all kinds of common touch points for the things we're looking at in the Bible to make sense of it. And there's no particular rush, which is great. We can track down stuff and go into all the different parts of church history in the Bible. Whatever book we're working through basically serves as this great launching pad into all kinds of other things. But the idea is that we make the Bible a part of our daily rhythm together. And we don't have to know everything, which is great because I don't know everything. A lot of what you get here is me learning in front of you. But I think about this stuff a lot. And I think about you when we're not together, when I'm not working on this. And so, it's kind of fun when we come together to just take a little bit of ground every day, even if it's only a few minutes together every day. So you make the Bible a part of your daily rhythm. And then also the idea is we're just trying to get books of the Bible, big swaths of the Bible in our hip pockets. I mean, it isn't exactly a Bible memory podcast, but I hope you accidentally get phrases and verses and structures, stuff Jesus said, a feel for Jesus, just stuck in your brain as we do it. So right now, if you're new, we're working through the book of John. We're just into John chapter 3. Don't be intimidated by the back catalog. Sometimes we hit certain passages and it's like, we just fly through it and it happens pretty quick. Other times, like most of John so far, we really take our time. There's a lot to look at here. And you can go back and you can pick any season we've done and listen through it, or you can go back to the beginning of John and pick it up from the beginning, or just if you're brand new, jump in here. You'll figure it out from there. Maybe you'll want to go back and get the rest later. Maybe not. Either way, it's cool. It's the internet. Whatever the case, we're in John 3 right now, right at the beginning of an ultra famous conversation that is loaded with nuance and meaning, some of which is unfortunately just going to be lost on us because we're just too far separated from this culture, but a lot of which I think we can understand. And yesterday we talked about this guy's job. Nicodemus is a dude who comes in the night to meet with Jesus because he wants to feel this thing out. He wants to know what the deal is with Jesus. I mean, this would represent kind of a conversion a little bit for Nicodemus. If he were to follow Jesus, I think Nicodemus can lick his finger and put it to the wind and figure out that his buddies, they're probably not going to go along with the Jesus thing. They seem pretty threatened by Jesus and dug in already, but Nicodemus isn't. He's that likable kind of dude who isn't threatened by everything that isn't what he already thought. And instead of getting judgy and defensive when things come up, he gets curious. And here especially, he can sniff out that there's something very good happening with Jesus. And he wants to understand how good. What is it? Where's it coming from? Now, some of his friends in the chapter before this conversation had gotten after Jesus in kind of a weird public, put Jesus on the spot way, kind of dictate terms to Jesus. You tell us what this is about, with the tisk-tisk and the finger wag. But Nicodemus, that isn't the tone he's taking. He's showing up secretly at night, but he's showing up with humility. And today we're getting into the posture of this conversation. So let me just read it to you. John 3:1. Now there was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, a member of the Jewish ruling council. Not all Pharisees were on the Jewish ruling council. So that means Nicodemus is elite in this group. We estimate that there were between 5,000 and 10,000 Pharisees at this time. Josephus specifically says 6,000 Pharisees. I don't know that he meant like right at this time, though. So that gives you a ballpark of how many there were. And Nicodemus is one of the few who have been elevated all the way to the Jewish ruling council, which means he would get the title rabbi. It means that he would be a teacher of the law. It means that he's someone who would have the Old Testament totally on lockdown, but also would be trusted by the people to extrapolate that out into further interpretations and regulations. He was elite. I mean, we're talking about a name here. This would be like somebody in our culture who would be a household name. I'm pretty sure everybody knew who Nicodemus was, or if he wasn't like A-list Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks, Chris Pratt kind of level, he would have been like the very next tier down. He would have been a very, very big deal to the people who were alive at this time in this part of the world. So, understandably, it's kind of a big deal to show up and even look like you're having this conversation, right? I went to a thing recently involving the lightning fast field guide to the Bible, this book that I wrote. And, it was a fancy thing at a fancy place, way above my pay grade or style. And I went in and I was invited to park in kind of like a little secure area. Oh, it's so impressive. But I just show up in my car or whatever, like a normie, and I couldn't figure out where to go. I don't go to places like this. And I get, ushered back in here. Yeah, park here. We'll watch your car. Well, there were other vehicles there. There were like all, dark tinted windows and stuff and like secret entrance. I'm like, dang, there's no way the fancy people here drove here in that vehicle. They got driven here in that. And look at how tinted the windows are. Like that window tint, they probably had to get a special dispensation from the government to tint their windows that hard to block the peons out here. Like, it's very impressive, right? And so it's easy for us to be like, people like that are so out of touch and bad. Yeah, but you've seen the footage, right, of how people get around famous people that they know from a distance. It gets really weird. I guess I understand why fancy people would want to have tinted windows and have somebody else drive them around. In part because they don't want people to know where they're going. Like if a famous person wants to go and size something up, or learn about something new, or try to eat somewhere new. Well, every time you do it, then you just have to calculate, will people see where I'm going, where I'm walking, where I parked? And will it be a whole story? Yeah, well, actually, there are people who are famous enough that that's how it works. I think Nicodemus felt some of this pressure. I think he's feeling like it looks like he's already made a vouch if people even knew that he had the conversation. Also, I think if people knew that he showed up and just talked with Jesus privately, it would almost come off socially like a criticism of how all of his teammates, all of his buddies had talked to Jesus the day before. So Nicodemus shows up and he came to Jesus at night and said, "Rabbi, we know that you are a teacher who's come from God, for no one could perform the miraculous signs you are doing if God were not with him." That's really good. That is a famous person showing massive respect to somebody who at this point is not as famous. Nicodemus is the bigger name than Jesus at this moment. And I mean, Nicodemus is no doubt staying somewhere nice, sleeping on fancy sheets, probably. Jesus isn't. Jesus is basically living and working in poverty among the people, in the dust. I mean, if this happened immediately after the events of John chapter 2, I mean, there's a decent chance that Jesus hadn't found any fresh water up yet to clean up after working up a good frothy sweat, beating the crap on all these money lenders. Okay, he didn't actually do that, but he made a whip out of cords and drove them out. I mean, this wasn't a nice activity. The court of the Gentiles that Jesus had purged maybe recently here, maybe same day, was a very big court with a lot of people selling things and money changing. Like, Jesus is a normal, probably slightly stinky, dirty, dusty dude at this point, if we're to take this as happening the night after Jesus purged the temple. But yet here comes this more famous man, Nicodemus, into the space where Jesus is hanging out, and he wants to talk, and he approaches with humility. He calls him rabbi. That is a very significant title. That means dignified teacher, one qualified to handle the text. Why would a famous guy like Nicodemus, who does this for a living and is at the pinnacle of being a rabbi, being a teacher, why would he be calling Jesus this? Well, because he's heard Jesus teach. And it's really good. And not just as an adult. I mean, there's a really good chance that Nicodemus was there in Luke chapter 2 when 12-year-old Jesus was at the temple. What would that be? 16 years earlier than John 3? So go 16 years back in the life of Jesus from John 3. Nicodemus was a younger man, but I think there's a great chance that he was there when Jesus was, Luke 2:46, in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions, and everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. I mean, had Nicodemus connected the dots? Yeah, maybe. Maybe not. Maybe. I mean, surely there are parts of the conversation we're looking at here that aren't recorded. I mean, this would be a very odd conversation if only what is recorded in John is there. Surely there was much more. Did they compare notes? Yeah, I kind of bet they did. Nicodemus seems to know more about Jesus than the reader would at this point in John. And whatever Nicodemus knows, it's prompted him to come with humility. And to even say, we know you've come from God. Nobody could perform the miraculous signs you're doing if God weren't with him. Well, we've only seen one miraculous sign, maybe 1.5. Something happened with Nathanael. It's kind of ambiguous out where the baptisms were occurring in John chapter 1. And then you got the water to wine at Cana, but making a whip and driving out the money changers, that wasn't a miracle. His baptism, but he didn't really perform a miracle at his baptism. God the Father did that. So more stuff must have transpired in the interim here, and Nicodemus knows more about it than we do, and it prompts him as a model character for you and me, the reader, to show up with humility and say, I might not understand everything, but there's something about you that smacks of being from God. This is so different than the attitude that Nicodemus's co-workers took in the previous passage. Jesus flips over tables and scatters the coins, and he says, get these out of here. How dare you turn my father's house into a market, which is awesome, by the way. And nobody tries to arrest him or anything for vandalism, but they are curious. It says, then the Jews demanded of him, what miraculous sign can you show us to prove your authority to do all this? Well, see how that's bossy? They're assigning him work. That's awfully presumptuous. You think he's authoritative enough to do what he just did and not get arrested, but not authoritative enough to be above being assigned work by you? Nah, they think they can assign him work. It is incumbent on you to tell us why you're important. But Nicodemus, he shows up in humility. He does it in such a way where the conversation isn't going to get wrecked by all of the insecurity and loudness of some of the maybe socially inept co-workers that were with him when Jesus was turning over tables a few verses earlier. He comes discreetly at night, not just to protect his identity for the celebrity reasons I talked about earlier. I think he came discreetly at night because he didn't want what he was saying to Jesus to be conflated with the stupid stuff that his classmates and his co-workers were saying. Look at the guts of what Nicodemus actually says here. Rabbi, we know you're a teacher who has come from God, for no one could perform the miraculous signs you're doing if God were not with him. He's driving at the same thing that the other guys were driving at. Remember? Back in John 1, the questions of John the Baptist were all about, who are you? Tell us plainly. Are you the Christ? Are you Elijah? Are you the prophet? Well, who are you? You have to tell us because we have to go back and tell people. Give me an answer right now, you jerks. The same kind of tone happened here in chapter 2. What miraculous sign can you show to prove your authority to do all this? Who are you? Tell us right now. Answer me. Nicodemus doesn't even ask a question. He just comes up and simply says, this is what I see. You're from God. No one could perform the miraculous signs you're doing if God were not with him. ... That's kind of the tone. It's just an invitation for Jesus to speak to it. It's a polite way of saying, would you tell me more? And that difference in posture is such a big deal. Throughout all the Gospels, the people who get it right assume some sort of posture like this before the king. They see Jesus' authority. They see his power. They see the way he teaches. It's not like the other teachers of the law. There's something unique going on here, and it humbles the person who responds rightly to Jesus. They might not understand everything about who Jesus is, but they know authority when they see it. They know goodness when they see it, and it stirs in them a sense of humility. The people who get it wrong, it stirs in them a sense of defensiveness and anger and demandingness and assigning Jesus work and indignance. But we learn a lot about Nicodemus by how he shows up, when he shows up, and his opening statement, which is humble and beautiful. We'll talk about what Jesus has to say in reply next time around. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.